All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the ECS co-op panel we have for Declaration Week. This is specifically for electrical engineering students and electronics co-ops. This will be a little less formal, even less formal than the previous sessions. There is no faculty or professors attending this. You have the opportunity to talk to 3 upper year co-op students in the ECS department who will be introduced very shortly. I'll just get some administrative stuff out of the way. I've put a link in the chat for an attendance sheet for a raffle. Please fill it out. Just a disclaimer: if you're in first year and BEng, you're eligible for the raffle. If you're not, it's not necessary for you to fill out the form because you're not eligible for the raffle, so don't need to worry about that. The raffle will be Amazon gift cards, and they will be handed out about next week. We'll have them to you. Okay, you'll get an email. Please check your email, and you should get an email if you were chosen, or if you won. Now, this session will be recorded. We'll first introduce the speakers, ask some questions, get to know them a little bit. Please feel free to turn on your camera at any point. If you have a question, raise your hand, type it in the chat, unmute yourself and say, excuse me, or I have a question, and it will be fine. Nobody will get upset or say you're rude. This is Zoom. We understand how the platform works. But yeah, you can turn on your camera. It's preferred that way. Once we're done on our end for the questions and the introductions and stuff, you can ask your own questions, and we will stop the recording if you want to ask questions that are a little bit more personal, or you feel uncomfortable asking them on the recording. So with all of that out of the way, I'm gonna give it over to Saraf, who put all of this together and got our 3 great co-op students who have volunteered their time to help out. Okay.
Hi everyone, hope y'all are doing all right today. So for our panelists, would you guys like to introduce yourself? I can do it, but I'd rather have you guys introduce yourselves.
I'll go first. So my name is Brandon. I'm in my 4th year of electrical. Currently, I have an interest in pretty much anything electronics, and I've done 2 co-ops. One co-op I did in my 3rd year at Nexea, and currently I'm doing an 8-month co-op at Murata Power Solutions. And if you have any further questions after this discussion, feel free to add me on Facebook and ask me anything.
So hi there, my name is Shadan. I'm in my 3rd year of electrical engineering. And this past year, I did my 8-month co-op at Nexea, just like Brandon. It's the same place he did his. And I'm also interested in like a lot of like electrical and electronic stuff. So if you have any questions about that or about my co-op, you can feel free to ask me.
I have a question. What skills are usually required for like an electronics co-op?
So what skills are required? Basically, you should have like a basic knowledge of electronics, like electrical circuits. That's like your ECS 2200. But we'll go a little bit more in depth in that in the panel. Once we go through like all the questions, all of us will talk about that more in depth.
All right. Thank you.
I guess I was on mute. My bad. Yeah. So my name is Dan. I'm a co-op student at Hydro One. My main interest is in terms of electrical engineering is power systems and anything about the utility industry. So if you have any questions about Hydro One or like how's the co-op, just shoot me a message on Facebook. Yeah, and also follow me on Instagram. I'll link my thing later.
Just to let you guys know, even if you're not choosing to go into electrical, even if you're interested in software, or maybe more on the computer side, which you might want to still go into embedded systems. It doesn't have to be that if you're not in electrical, you can't choose one of these streams or one of these careers. You can still get into a lot of things related to electronics that also incorporate software. So my first question to y'all would be, what are or where your roles in your respective companies? So the position name and what you guys kind of worked on, if that's not a confidential issue.
Okay, I'll go first. So currently, I'm working as an engineering technologist in the firmware department of Murata Power Solutions. And what that encompasses is essentially having an understanding of both software and the hardware side of things. So, that's understanding EECS 2200 and 2210, so which you guys will take in your second year, and those just cover the fundamentals of circuits and electronics. And some of the things which I've been doing during that job has just been things such as analyzing schematics, as well as looking through components and making choices as to what I think is appropriate for the schematic. So if you're interested in that type of work, then electrical might be for you.
Let me go next. So I currently work for the telecom division of Hydro One, and I'm on the database support team for the engineering department. So what my role is, I'm part of a team where we manage database for all the equipments that Hydro One has. For example, to sum up, part of my job is to model a huge engineering drawing into a searchable database object. For example, if they need, like, say, for example, a transformer, engineer wants to work on a transformer, they can easily look it up on our database without any drawings that they need.
So Shadan, if you wanted to answer.
Yeah, sure. So my role was working as a test engineer for Nexea Canada. And Nexea, the company, they develop solutions for cable, connector, and wire testing, like different products and devices for that. My responsibilities in my position was testing and debugging hardware and ensuring parts like, for example, relays and cables were suitable for their use. So what I do is I'd write test programs and implement them. And the test programs would test, like, let's say, the resistance, if it's within the accepted parameters, if they can like take like high voltage, current leakage, or test all those things. And it was also like looking at schematics and picking out like what components are the right ones for their systems. And another thing I did in this co-op was develop a mobile app for them to use with their tester system.
Thank you for you guys' answer. So the next question would be, do grades really matter all that much?
Yeah, so if you want to get into the larger companies such as AMD or Intel or NVIDIA, then it would matter to have grades on the upper side of the spectrum. So maybe in this 7s, 8s, or 9s. But then if you're not trying to shoot for like the larger companies, then I think you'll be okay as long as you're above a 2 point, somewhere in the upper 2s. I'm just speaking on my experience. So because I never was above like I never was above the 3.0 until after my 2 co-ops. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was speaking on a 4.0 scale. I mean, so basically, I had an average in, I believe, in the 5. I think I was at 5.7 or 5.5. and I believe that's equivalent to a C plus. So I don't think you guys should be too focused on grades. But of course, like when you're applying for jobs, right? You don't want to. Yeah, exactly, Hasher. So that's right. So because I was at a 5.8 or 5.5, so that would have been in the upper 60s, I believe. But so one of the concerns I had was that, so when I was applying, I wasn't sure whether I was getting so rejected because my GPA so was below like the 6.0 or 3.0 like cutoff. So it's more for like peace of mind, especially if you're not trying to get into like the bigger ones.
All right, so I'll just add to what Brandon said is, yeah, it's the same thing that if you're going with like bigger companies, they might have a certain GPA or average that they want, but it doesn't matter as much as you think it matters. But you should also aim to like have a decent GPA, just like Brandon said, like around this 5.5 to 6-ish. But the more important thing is what skills you have and how you've demonstrated those, both like technical and non-technical skills. And for that, like the good thing, a more important thing would be like getting involved a lot in Lassonde, whether it's like clubs, activities, projects, hackathons. So you can show that you have like not only technical skills, but also the non-technical skills. Even like getting a job would that also helps as well, because it shows like you have work experience, you know how to work in like a office or like a work environment, and that's like a really transferable skill.
Let me just add a little bit to what they said. Yeah, you need a high GPA if you want to work for like companies like AMD or like Intel, or like for example Apple too. But I think for me, what my takeaway for this, because I have like similar GPA with Brandon, between like 5.5 to like 5.8. But my takeaway is have employable skills, let's say communication skills, like working teams and being trainable, because that's what matters in like the work field. Like for myself, I didn't know anything about database or like any technologies that they use in Hydro One, but I was willing to learn and show it to my boss, and he just like always like in the interview too.
Can I just ask a question?
Yep, that's totally fine. You can go ahead and ask a question.
Do they often ask about like what languages you know, like programming languages? Is that really important, or like do you get taught as you go on the job?
Shadon, so would you like to speak on this, or so would you like me to speak?
Yeah, I can speak on that. So it really depends on the position. Like some positions you might require knowledge of certain programming languages, but other positions might not. Like for example, for my position at Nexea, all the test programs for like testing the parts and everything, that was done in Lua. I didn't know Lua going in, but they did like they gave me like a book to like not only study on my own, but they also like taught me a little bit. So basically there's a lot of learning as you go. So as long as you can pick it up quickly and you like ask a lot of questions, like don't be scared to ask questions. And if you don't know something, like don't be scared to like tell them, like they'll help you out, then you should be good to go. As long as you're like willing to learn and you can pick up stuff on the go.
How fast like do you think you have to be like learning in like a couple of weeks or like a couple of months? Like let's say you went into language was Leo, right?
Language Lua.
Lua. Sorry.
It's like it's a scripting language.
Okay, so like how long did it take you to pick that up, and like what do you think is like the acceptable time to like take to get fit into a job and like learn their languages and all this stuff?
For me, like in the case of my job, it was like a couple of weeks because it was mostly like kind of basic things, but like things continued to arise like as I went through the co-op, like different things. So I'd always ask for help or I'd research online. So as long as like you're on top of things and like you can like if you have willingness to learn and you communicate exactly like what you know and what you don't know, like don't like act like you know something that you don't, then you'll be okay.
So sorry, before we can answer Kenneth, just give us a second. Brandon just had something to add. We'll take your question after that.
Yeah, so just continuing on Shadon's train of thought. So at Amarada, right, they wanted me to learn C#. They asked me, so do you know C#? And the thing is that you have to be transparent, as Shadon said, right? So you have to tell them what languages like you do know and what the closest thing is, just so they can have a realistic time frame for how long you're going to take on that task. And based on your experience, so with that language, they're going to so give you certain tasks. So for example, for Shadon and I, we weren't masters at Lua until the very ending of our co-op. So when we started off, they were very reasonable. So don't feel like you have to be in a rush to understand sort of languages to which they teach you. So for me, I had roughly around a few weeks to understand C#, but I think the reason why they were more compliant was because I had already learned C before, as well as taken object-oriented programming at York. So I think that definitely helped in the rate at which I was able to pick up on the languages.
Yeah, I'd also add to what Brandon was saying, that if you know one language, then it's a lot easier to pick up other languages, because it's just a syntax that's different, but the logic more or less is pretty similar. So let's say if you know C, then it'll be pretty not that hard to pick up C++ or C# in that instance if you know C and Java, for example.
So Kenneth here had a question, if you wanted to ask Kenneth.
Yes, though I'm a little bit, I think this is basically for computers, but I'm in mechanical engineering, my first year, but still I believe what I'm learning here is relevant to my discipline. I'm just trying to give my own part of it. I've worked back home. I had a diploma in engineering, and I used it to work for a couple of times, and it's quite long. I left school. I had to come back again to start again. I'm finding a lot difficult at this time to really catch up, because it's quite a long time I left school. But I have a lot of experience on the job. Actually, I was working as a piping engineer back home, and I'm now in Lassonde. So I'm going to ask if even if I don't come out with a very good grade, do you think, though I hope I'm not going to get a low grade, but even if I don't, do you think my experience, I had 10 years experience on the job, do you think my experience will really count in me getting a placement after school?
I think absolutely that'll really count. If you have on-the-job experience, that's actually more important than getting really good grades. That means that shows you what work you've done, if you can explain the projects you've done and all the stuff, responsibilities you've done on the job, your on-the-job experiences. That's a really valuable thing, and I think that'll give you an edge over other applicants as well. If you're doing co-ops and jobs, that you have a lot more of that experience that someone else might not.
Okay, thank you very, very much. I actually missed some of the, I didn't know about this week. I got to know about it late, so I decided to attend this and for tomorrow. And they talked about us taking attendance or doing a selfie. I don't even know how to do it. I don't know. To indicate I actually attended.
Yeah, so just the attendance is there for a raffle, but sometimes professors ask, can you verify? Honestly, they never ask, but if they do, we have it here. But just take a screenshot where your face in it of your Zoom, and just attach that, and I think you will be fine with that.
Okay,
that should be good.
Very much.
But yeah, so I guess we'll move on to the next set of questions.
And also these sessions that we've had, if you haven't had a chance to participate in the other ones, we do have them recorded, and I think we would upload it on our website, if I'm correct, Bashir. So yeah. You can also check that out later on. And I think we had one more question for Abdullah. Abdalla.
Yeah, I I had a question and I just put my hand down, but I was just wondering when you guys like did your co-op, was it like second year, third year, fourth year?
So
Yeah.
So I did mine in the middle of third year. So it was like from January to September of this year, I did mine. And I know Dan's doing his right now.
Yeah, I started in September. So right in the beginning of my third year.
So you guys were doing it like not in the summer. You guys were doing it during like a term, right?
Yeah.
Is that where most of them usually are, or how is it?
It's really dependent on the position. Like there are like 4 month positions that are just the summer, but there's also like 8 months like I did. And there's even longer ones like 12 or 16. Usually like, at least this is what they said in my workplace, is like 4 months is usually too little to like do any significant projects. So a lot of the co-ops are like 8, 12, 16 months. And your best bet is to like apply for like every semester. Like the summertime, usually like there's a lot more applicants. So this is what I've observed, is like it's a harder chance to get in as compared to like during the term. There's usually less applicants.
I see. And then if you
But like this is just personal experience, like so don't take my word for it.
yeah. And then if you did it in the term, that means you extended your school, right? Because then you'd have to stay in school for a bit longer. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You'd have to like take those courses later.
Yeah, exactly as Shadon said, you would have to still like delay yourself. So for me, I did so like 2 co-ops, which cut into the fall semester twice, which means I'm delayed by 2 more years. But so you may be thinking that's not like the best idea. And of course, in an ideal world, I would have done a co-op, so which was 16 months, that starting in summer. That way I wouldn't have had to cut into my semester twice. But of course, experience is actually like really important, right? So you want to make sure that you don't graduate so without having at least some experience and an idea of what you want to be pursuing. So when you graduate, so if you do have the opportunity like to do a co-op and you're debating whether you want to do it, even though it'll cut into your semester, definitely do it. Like I made a choice like to cut into my semester. And because of that first co-op, I was able to actually land on my second co-op. So because the first one was so closely like related, and it just opens a bunch of like doors for you.
Okay, that really helps actually. Thank you.
Yep.
So the next question we'll take is from A.Jack. I don't know your full name. but-
Hi, thank you. This is actually more generalized question. Like, how's life? Like, first, second, third, fourth year, like workload increase, stress load increase, or how do you guys find it? Do you guys have free time to do stuff? Pretty much like the difference between year 1 to 4 and difficulties and time consumptions, that kind of stuff.
I'm actually like finding that my life is more enjoyable than it was in first year. I think that's just primarily because I've built up more confidence over the last few years, but it definitely wasn't always like this, especially in second year. When you're taking those courses, so which are totally different than anything you've taken in first year, it's going to make you doubt yourself a tiny bit, but then as you get some more experience, you're going to be able to feel more confident. And I think with that confidence, I think your quality of life will generally like just increase, right? So because like when you're applying for jobs and when you're in the workforce, confidence always like helps. But I do find that I have like more time to enjoy myself and things like that.
So would you say second year is the make and break year?
Pretty much, yeah.
For me, it was, but my friends would argue that it comes later on in like third year. But of course, like for me, I didn't have, so I wasn't too involved like with my classmates. So when I was in second year, so I don't think I had gotten the help which I needed. So that's on me. But I think as long as you always have like people to ask, so whether that's you asking like the TA or the professor, like several questions, then you won't find any year like to be too overwhelming.
Okay, and last question is, understand first year is all foundation, right? Your math, general physics, chem, How much of those do you guys actually use in second, third, fourth year? Like,
Well, so we always have to do like derivatives. Well, not always, but it helps to understand like derivatives and math. So just because, especially in like electrical, for almost like every course so which you take, there's always going to be so like derivatives. So like coming at some point in time. So when a teacher wants to show you formulas, so for example, in a 2200, there's all these basic formulas. So, but the teachers aren't going to like tell you, oh, here's a formula, just like memorize it. You're actually going to draw it on the board, and you'll have to have that basic understanding of like derivatives and like math to be able to understand it. But so with like chemistry, you won't need to know that unless you do like a co-op, like so which is related like to that. But I didn't have to do like any chemistry after first year. 2200 is circuits one. I should have clarified that. You'll take it in the fall.
okay, thank you very much.
So the next person that asked a question was Dimitrios. If you wanted to ask your question.
Yeah, hi. Just wondering if you guys could explain like the process that you went through when you're like when you first applied to co-ops. So like what you put on your resumes, your like interview process, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, I'll go over this. So as I mentioned so before, I've never been a top student, right? Like I've always been so below the 6.0 like cutoff, especially in second year. Not meant like to scare you. I was just, so I wasn't like the best student in second year. But like to compensate for that, I knew I also had to apply for jobs, right? So what I did was I did the York engineering competition, and I tried like really hard just because I knew I needed to have something on my resume, right? To compensate for that lack of GPA, to show that I'm involved, and also to show some sort of like technical skills. So which is what like they want to see. Like, so when you apply, sometimes like they'll want you like to have experience with an Arduino or like other types of hardware, and you won't and you'll like get that type of experience through YEC or through like clubs and stuff. So through like robotics or through like CubeSat. I always made sure that on my resume I also included labs. So I know it sounds like counterintuitive, so like to include labs, but if you're in the position where you don't have projects, it helps like to say what type of circuits like you've built, even the ones in physics, right? So just include that as like a starting point, and just like build up like from there.
Yeah, definitely. Like I'd add to what Brandon's saying. When you're applying for jobs, yeah, it's definitely a good idea to have like getting involved in different clubs, activities, hackathons, for example. Like I put that on my resume that I was like part of IEEE, and also about a hackathon I did, and I was asked that in interviews. So like they'll definitely ask you about that. As for the application process, you just like have to apply a lot, like don't get disheartened. Like you will get rejections and you might not get responses. So just like keep at it and like don't really, I think the best advice is just like don't get disheartened or like discouraged.
To add to it too, for my resume, I had like club executive positions, like a leadership position, and also a part-time job for like it's like I think it's like 3 years now. I think the one thing that got me through the position is having like a decent having a good reference. Just say if you have like a professor that really you like and like always talk to them, ask them for reference. And also I did like a good job at my part-time work, so all of my bosses there like vouch for me during the background check, and that's how I got the job at Hydro One. In terms of like, yeah, have a projects too. That's really good because they always ask that. And also, you state in your resume that you have a lot of like teamwork in your classes. That will help a lot because they really emphasize working in teams in the competitions.
And
Yeah.
another thing to add about projects is like don't lie about any projects that you did or anything. Like make sure to like if you didn't do something, like it's best not to put it because you will be asked in interviews. So if you can't like back that up and explain it, then like don't put it. You're just I'm just gonna be blunt. You're gonna make yourself look like a fool in the interview.
Yeah, exactly as Shadon said, you don't want to lie about those type of things. So both Shadon and I, we were interviewed by the exact same person. And during my interview, he literally like took out my resume, put it on the table and pointed at every single project and asked me like details. So like he was like, so in this project, how do you improve on this? So what was wrong like with your like implementation of your project? So you gotta know it's stone cold. You're better off like just talking about things which you can actually talk about, right? So because they will ask you about it. One other thing I forgot to elaborate on is that even though we are electrical students, right? You want to make sure that your resume is well-rounded. So you want to have hardware projects and software projects. And the reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of the co-ops, just like mine and Shadon's, it's not going to be purely electrical. They're also going to have you do some sort of scripting or any type of coding. So they want to see you have some sort of basic experience with coding. So what I did was I had one hardware project and one software project, and I think that really helped me.
Can I
The
also
next,
ask,
yeah, sure.
sorry, can I also ask, like when is a good time to start applying for co-ops and where? Is there like a site that we're supposed to be doing this on?
Yes, a good time to apply like so if you're applying for the summer semester, like summer 2021, start now. Like now is the best time to apply, like start from now. And there's different websites. I think the main place to apply is the Lausanne Co-op portal, obviously, but if not, then also check outside, like check through LinkedIn, Indeed, and just your own personal network. Like if you have like family or friends in different companies, or if you know like a senior student, like they're in a company that you want to work in, like contact them. Plus also like the hackathons and other events. Like I think Lausanne does events where different companies, they'll come and they'll do presentations. So just to like introduce yourself and make yourself known to everybody, like that's that's pretty important and like a great way to like be able to find jobs and like have a better chance of like securing a job. Just like if more people know you or you build your network.
Yeah, one thing I've learned about like applying like for jobs. So right now I'm on my third round of applying. So I would like to think I've learned even like a tiny bit, but what you're gonna have is you're gonna have a Lausanne like job portal, assuming you're part of the co-op program. So which I assume like all of you so will be because you're in this call or at least have interest in it. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that so you don't restrict yourself. So like to the Lausanne job portal, there's like other websites, right? Such as like LinkedIn or Indeed. So what I did was I realized I don't want to have to click on a website and look for jobs when I'm not even sure whether it has postings. So when instead I can just go to that website like once and set up like job alerts. That way it'll just go to my email. So whenever there's like relevant postings, just to save you some time. And like you can set like specific like search tags in like Indeed, just so it'll also come directly to your email. Because like you don't want to make this painful, right? Are you going to be sending a lot of applications? So you want to make it as automated as possible.
The next question was from the chat. Let me just find it. So they asked, how did you guys manage to do co-op and school at the same time? Also, how can you sign up for co-op? I don't know if someone already asked that.
Yes. So how can you sign up for co-op? Well, the first step would be to sign up for the Lausanne co-op program. I think there's 3 steps to it. You have to attend some workshops. One is like a resume writing, interview skills, and there's one other workshop. And make sure that your GPA is like pretty decent as well. And then once you get in the co-op program, then you basically apply for the jobs and you can talk to the advisors. They can help you like with their resume and interview process and everything. They're pretty helpful. So like they'll definitely help you out with that. But like the process, nothing like really complicated. That's the process to apply. And that's like, you do the interviews until you get the job. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, don't feel so like discouraged while you're applying. So I know like a lot of people like will like to just post that they've gotten like jobs extremely quickly, but especially for your first co-op, you're gonna find that it's better like to just not count. I think it's very like discouraging, especially like when you're so when you've sent out several applications and you just see like that number keep increasing. So so just make sure that so that you're not too hard on yourself, right? Like for me, I'm gonna be like blunt with you guys. It took me 80 applications before I got my first job. But that's not so necessarily because I didn't have experience. I did have good experience. It was also because that when I started applying, right, I'm not gonna have the best I'm not gonna have like the best like ability or like understanding of how to best represent my skills on paper. So that's just something which you learn as you apply, how to represent yourself for a specific job in your cover letter and your resume.
There's something else in the chat as well. Somebody said, I think Abdullah, if you take co-op and then a month and you don't want to do it, are you allowed to just drop it like a course, or are you locked into it? So to answer that question, that's like pretty discouraged to like drop if you like quit a co-op partway through, and it really doesn't look good. But if there's like any issue with at your co-op place, the best bet will be to talk to your co-op advisor, the co-op advisor at Lassonde, and they'll sort it out for you. And let's say like if you decide there's like an issue with the co-op place or something and you want to leave, then like they'll have to arrange, you'd have to speak to them and then arrange that. But you can't just like drop by yourself.
I'd say you're in a position that you don't like your co-op. I would say just like take the best out of it, learn as much as possible, so that you can have like a better position when next time you apply for co-op.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was saying, like if there's like actual issue with your co-op or like there's like some problem that's happening, then you'd speak to the advisor. But if you just don't like it, then yeah, I agree with what Dan said. Is like make the best out of it.
Yeah, that's
And
why
I guess
during
maybe you'll like end up liking it later on.
Yeah, that's why like during the interview, they usually give you a description and go more in depth into what the job is. So because like, they don't want you like to feel like you're not interested, right? So always make sure you ask as many questions as possible about the job. So just to make sure that you don't like regret it or feel that you have to leave.
Oh yeah, to add one thing on this, during my interview for for my position, like the boss literally told me like, oh, in this position, it's really boring for the co-op students because it depends on like how busy the construction for like the transformer stations. That will depend on that the busyness of the construction. That's where we get that work. So basically, if there's no construction, there's literally no work for me. I was like, I told them, I won't complain. Like, all I want is to learn about the industry and get more experience so that I could have like a good position in the future. And I think that's like what he liked about my answer and how I got the job.
The next question was from Shane.
Hey everyone, thanks for doing this, by the way. And my question is just about the one common thing I see with all the panelists is all their co-op placements require some coding, right? Do the first and second year courses that you did, do they prepare you enough for the coding you have to do in the co-op placements? Like, are you more modifying existing code or are you building stuff from the ground up?
So for me, at in my first co-op, I had to build code from the ground up, but I had my supervisor who already had sections of code which he had like implemented. So he always sent me some like blocks of code which he thought would be useful. But yeah, in first and second year, right? I don't know whether you guys are going to take object-oriented programming in second year. Maybe it's different. But for me, I felt quite prepared because we had Java in first year, and then in second year we had Java again, and then we had C in the winter semester. So I felt that I had my bases covered pretty well. And then, but in my second co-op, I did have to like modify code from my last like intern's implementation. He wrote like 4,000 lines of code, but it was well documented, right? Like all the seniors are going to ensure that people aren't going to leave like the company without writing documentation. So you're not going to feel overwhelmed when you're looking at that type of code because these people are here to help you, right? It's their job.
So there's another issue I think our upper years don't know about it because it just got changed. So first years that just entered this year, they don't take 2030 anymore. So I think for them, it's going to be more important that they take 1011, 1021, because 1021 pretty much covers, like, especially if James Smith teaching is, he pretty much covers everything that's important. And you also take 2032 in second year, which is embedded systems, and you learn a lot of, like, you learn Bash, which is a scripting language. You learn C, and you learn microcontroller and stuff. So these can also be shown as experience. And I think the 2032 class this semester is actually doing a project. So things like that can actually be shown on your resume, because our professors and our department is shifting from just labs to more like project-based courses. And they're trying to incorporate, at least during this year through the pandemic, they're trying to do like 15%, 30% projects. So you guys have something substantial to show for next year. I think the next question was from Abdullah.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, would you say like work that isn't related to the like that type of stuff, like say you just work somewhere anywhere, would that impact, like would that look good at all, or it wouldn't really matter on your resume?
Like, are you talking like other like work experience?
Yeah, like, but like nothing really related. Like say you worked at like a restaurant or a grocery store or something.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That would really help because like that demonstrates that you have like the certain like skills, like for example, customer service, like dealing with people. It's like problem solving, time management. There's like all the soft skills, and you can like really demonstrate that. And as long as you can try and like connect that to the responsibilities of the job, that like, let's say you worked in a restaurant, like you had to like manage like different orders. So that means like you can like multitask well and like work in a high stress environment, for example. So if you can like connect that to the duties and responsibilities in the position, like that's really going to help you. And it also shows that like you've been in a workplace environment before. So like that's like that gives you an edge over someone who's like never worked before.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just expanding on what Shadan said. For a lot of like positions, so which like I've worked, I always have to give like presentations, right? Like on my work, like to seniors. So to answer your question, yes, it actually is quite useful to have jobs listed on your resume, especially if you can really like hit the mark on those like communication aspects. So like you can talk about like a star situation. So like you can explain, I had this conflict, blah 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 blah, and I resolved it using my like communication skills, and they really eat that up.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good one, like the STAR method for like problem solving.
And to add to it too, so yeah, I have like a part-time job until now, well, even though I'm co-op. So the thing you could get a part-time, I work for a grocery store as a part-time like butcher. So the thing that you could get out from it is, they see that Shadan said, teamwork, communication skills, and work in a high stress environment. And also, yeah, customer service, helping out of people. And also you could use that job in a star situation. For example, a boss, your boss might ask you, tell me about a time where you have like a conflict within your job. See, if you had like a conflict resolution, if you did a conflict resolution at your part-time job, you could definitely use that like an example in your interview. And I think that will yield like, that will definitely impress your boss if you answer it properly.
Any more questions from any of you guys, or I'll ask one of the questions then?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I was asking in the chat, but it's basically between the difference between software and computer engineering. Now I understand that software is going to be more programming and computer is going to be more hardware oriented, although both will overlap. I guess the better part was that someone was saying that it includes like big data or computer security. Is that a part of like the course stream that you would have to take? As in like instead of taking those extra hardware classes, you'd be in computer security classes and larger data classes?
I think I'll tackle this question, I guess, because those streams are brand new and they actually just came out last summer. So software engineering is now 3 separate majors. You can take the general major, the computer security major, or the big data major. Now, essentially, big data major, what does that mean? That means you'll take courses in machine learning, AI, well, not even courses. You'll take a course in machine learning, very introductory. You won't, machine learning and that stuff, there's very few undergrads in the whole world that will even teach you a lot about it. You have to go to masters if you really, really want to do that seriously. But you'll also take courses in data mining and database systems. So like one of the speakers was saying, they didn't know much about database systems. Well, now there are courses you can take. If you take that major, that'll get you into that. If you do the computer security stream, you'll focus mostly on like the RSA encryption stuff and number theory and cryptography. That's a very, very, I'm going to say right now, tough area of math for most people. And it's probably something not a lot of people want to do, but the people who do want to do it, they really do like it. So that's what I would say for like the differences between those streams. The general stream is essentially computer engineering minus the hardware, and then add more coding in to complete your credit requirement.
Okay, thank you. That actually answers it perfectly.
So I'll ask one of the questions next if no one wants to. What are some of the hardest courses you have taken thus far? What tips can you give to our first years?
So one of the hardest courses I've taken was actually electronics. So one thing I would recommend, as I mentioned before, is to ask questions, right? Like, at least for me, it's very difficult for me to raise my hand during class and to ask questions because I feel like I'm asking a dumb question. But the longer I've stayed in York, the more I've realized that other people also have these questions too, and they're actually going to be thankful that you asked, right? And honestly, when you get in the mentality that like your learning is important and you have to understand these things for your understanding and for your like career, so then I think you're going to place more emphasis on making sure you have a good understanding and asking questions. And also, so don't do things independently. At least for me, I always would try to do things like the lone wolf type of style. But so make sure that you have a group of people to ask, whether that's TAs, professors, or classmates.
Yeah, like I'd add to what Brandon was saying as well, like some of the hardest courses was the electronic circuits and devices, circuits 2, ECS 2210. That was a pretty challenging course. Also, ECS 2032 was hard for me. That's the embedded systems course. And some tips for first years, I'd say like make sure you go to the classes, like don't skip classes and keep up with them regularly. With this online learning, I know it's a lot harder. And like even for me, it was hard. Like last semester was like pretty hard for me as well with online. So I'd say like one tip that like this is actually something I'm going to start implementing as well is I set a regular schedule that like say I need to watch like this lecture by this date, and that'll help you get through those. Plus also like always like email your professors. Like I'm talking specifically for online, or go to their office hours and like get to know people in your classes, whether it's like through a Discord server or like a group chat, like so that like you have the resources to help you. Because like even though it's harder now with the online, like they're still out there, and like you just have to put yourself out there and like put in the effort.
For me, also the hardest course I ever took is Circuits 2, is ECS 2210. My tip for that course is it also applies for like a Circuits 1, 2200. is don't memorize the questions. Like learn how to do the problems, learn how each component works. Because if you could do that and apply on the problem, it will be really easy.
The author of the textbook which you guys will be using, I presume that you guys will be using the exact same textbook as us, but he actually posted YouTube videos where he went over sort of different topics for like electronics. So make sure that you search up like the author of your textbook, and maybe he'll have some videos just like he did for us, because that was very useful. It was like having our own like lecturer so right in front of us at all times, so which we could
Yeah.
always replay.
Yeah, if it's like a Siri teaching again, then it's gonna be that same book. It's by Razavi, electronics book. So just search that up on YouTube. Search up Razavi Electronics. You'll find all of his lectures.
Do you guys recommend just sticking to the Lausanne Co-op portal for finding co-op postings?
Not at all. There's a lot of like good positions at in the Lausanne portal, like both Shadon and I, so we found our co-ops from the Lausanne portal, but there is a lot of good opportunities which you'll find on other websites which Lausanne simply sometimes like doesn't show. So for me, for me, what I did was I went on Indeed, and then I typed into the search bar, I typed in hardware co-op or like hardware intern. So then I just got constant emails, but only relevant like to the things to which I typed in. So then a lot of the time those positions weren't posted on the Lausanne portal, so I felt like I had an edge, even though I like ended up not like working there. It was still nice to have ample opportunities. So because you're gonna find there's a lot of software positions which you're gonna find on the job portal, but there's slightly less electrical ones. So you want to make sure that you have as many opportunities as possible.
Here's another tip. In Indeed, you can actually set up like the Indeed site to send you an email every day about like recent postings. You could use that so that you have, so that every time the email comes in, you can immediately apply, and also that will like increase your luck of getting a job. Also works, I think, also in LinkedIn also.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Brandon and Dan already answered the question, but no, like Lausanne Co-op portal, they have a lot of good postings, but you should be looking everywhere, like wherever you can.
One thing I want to warn you guys about is that when you're using LinkedIn, like to look for jobs, sometimes it won't show you certain types of postings just because there's a word in between. So for example, I typed in the word hardware, and then a posting popped up which showed hardware developer intern, and then I wanted like to test something. So then on LinkedIn, I typed in hardware intern, but that position didn't pop up just because the position name had the word a developer inside. So, but then on Indeed, the moment I typed in hardware intern, it did show that position. So you want to use as many websites as possible. So for me, I just use LinkedIn, Lausanne portal, and Indeed.
Did any of you guys have any questions? Oh, Abdullah, you can ask your question.
Yeah, so you guys are talking about first applying into the co-op program for Lausanne. I thought this is just from what I know, I don't know, that you applied for that when you were applying for school, because when I would look when I was applying to get into university, they had like the co-op programs with them, if you guys know what I mean. Like, can you still apply for that after?
Yeah, like I think everybody applies in their second year. In your second year, you'd be eligible to apply for the co-op program. So like everybody applies then, like doesn't matter if you selected co-op or not in your your application when you apply to university.
Yeah,
You're in second
exactly.
year, and you'll like
Yeah.
go through the process for it. I think there's like 3 workshops you have to do, and obviously maintain the GPA. That's like, I'm not sure. Is it like a 5.5 or 6.0, something like that? Like as
It's
long as you
It's
maintain,
5.0, if I recall.
yeah,
5.0.
whatever the GPA is, as long as you maintain the GPA requirement, you should be good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, yeah, don't feel like you have to get a co-op in second year. So because I got mine in my third year, but of course, you want to get it as soon as possible.
Okay, so on that note, I think I'm gonna stop the recording because it's 6:30, and if anyone wanted their questions to not be on the recording, feel free to ask them now. And at this point, if whoever sticks around, thank you very much for sticking around, giving extra time. But the event is officially over. But I always encourage a little bit of a post-event. I'm a very social person. I think a lot of people here are bored these days as well. So I'm gonna stop the
Yep.
recording. Don't think that this is us kicking you out. You can be here as long as you want. Okay.